continue. Now you can go.
Now we can go. Awesome. Thank you very much, Tom. And hello, everybody. I am Trevor Spires. And today's plan is to talk a little bit about a topic that I bet nobody here has ever heard about. A topic that I bet will be brand new to every single person on this call. It's something that you're not seeing on the news every day, that your parents aren't reaching out and asking you about and all that. We're going to talk about generative AI. Have you all heard of that? Generative AI. But hey, everybody, I'm Trevor Spires. I am a solutions architect at AWS. And lately I've been working with a lot of our customers in the field on this particular technology. There, I think recently has been a huge explosion in like a few different areas of this technology. Like certainly the scale and the ability of these models have really took a huge jump forward in this last year. And so today my hope is to show you a little bit about all of that, some of the stuff that is kind of hot off the press, the latest and greatest Claude 3 models, what they're capable of, and then talk a little bit about Bedrock, if it makes sense, and the function it serves and where it fits in the world of generative AI software. So, folks, if you're here live with us in the chat, I'm up here in rural Maine right now. Usually I live in Salem, Massachusetts, but right now I'm up in the woods. If you're hanging out in the chat, I'll be watching it throughout the session. Come off mute if you have questions, but let me know where y'all are coming. Where you're coming in from? Like who's actually from Providence here? Do we have anybody from Providence on the Providence AWS user group call? Because if you do, I would love to know like a fun fact of Providence. Because all I know right now, I live close by. I know Jazz Fest. That's pretty sick, and I know Brown. But I'd love some Providence fun facts. If there's more I should be knowing about the only town in Rhode Island, right? I think the whole state of Rhode Island is just one town.
We got a couple from Rhode Island.
I see that. Great.
Water fire is the big thing in Providence. That's what you're supposed to come see.
Water fire. Oh yeah, they have like a big festival right on the river.
Yeah, they do it several times a year. Light a bunch of bonfires on the river. It's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, I didn't go to it last year. I got to see I saw all the things set up in the river. I should have stuck around. Seemed like it'd be pretty sweet. Awesome. Well, that's great. I'm glad we got some Providence folks here, but it looks like we got representation from the whole greater New England area. So that's good. New Hampshire, Maine, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Mass. That's awesome. This is a New England hang. So we'll talk a little bit about Gen AI, some New Englanders, and we'll try to keep it fun. Like I said, everybody, this is thankfully, I'm very lucky that this is a topic that I can dive deep in if folks want to dig into a particular area that we go over today. So don't be afraid to come off of mute and ask a question if anything I mention sounds intriguing or you'd like to double click on it, because we got about an hour and a half here on the books. So definitely time for questions. So anyway, start with Anthropic. I'm going to show you a demo of some cool stuff Anthropic can do. Then I'm going to give you a short introduction to like Bedrock, and so I can get to some of the latest and greatest features that just launched on it. And then at the end, I'd love at the end for folks who stick around, and I'll make sure that I make time for this. I would love to, maybe everybody comes off of, turns their cameras on, or whoever wants to turn their camera on can turn their camera on, and we can have a little discussion about, I can share some of the case studies and some of the use cases that I'm seeing launched in mostly in the financial services sector right now. But maybe folks on the call could share some of their experiences too, about the strengths and shortcomings of this technology, because I think we're far enough along with generative AI now that we know there certainly are some times and instances where a Gen AI solution is like a slam dunk for a customer or for a company. But there are also some instances where it's just not there yet, or it's not safe enough yet. And I think it's really important for folks like us, for builders, for engineers, for technically minded folks to have discussions about what works and what doesn't in Gen AI. because because we are the ones who are close to the technology and have the ability to communicate to like leaders of industry who might have like an idea about what they could do with generative AI. Hey, I want to use generative AI to like reimagine my supply chain. Like that sounds really cool, but it takes engineers, architects, builders like us to kind of take that down to earth and get tactical and determine like how can we apply generative AI to a problem like a supply chain, for example. Ooh, that was a nice monologue. I felt like I was on a roll there. I don't know how it sounded to you all, but it felt like I was on a roll on my end. So let's get started. But first, we'll start with a demo. And my audio, unfortunately, everyone was giving me some troubles. So I'll share in the chat as I kind of narrate through what I wanted to highlight to start, which is Claude's Opus 3 model. In particular, the reason I wanted to highlight this model is just because there's some emerging capabilities that it's showcased. And so since I can't share my audio and I can't play the video live here, what I'm going to do is just kind of walk you through what I had hoped to show you and what made my brain explode when I first saw it like a month ago. Isaiah has actually seen this before. Except for he got the full audio version when we did it on a stream a couple weeks ago. Anywho, one interesting emerging capability or new capability of Claude 3 Opus has been, and really all the Claude 3 models has been its ability to consume graphical information and analyze graphical information from whether it's a slide or in this case, the model actually went to Google itself. You know, it had like a sub agent that it deployed to go hit Google, look up the US GDP. And just like a human that might be interested in what the US GDP is, and we're starting to research these things, a model like Claude 3 can actually start executing tasks, open up something like a page on Google, pull this graph out, and then return its own interpretation of that data. You could, once it's consumed that data, you can start to ask it questions like, cool, like that's what we've done in the past. Can you start to project some future iterations of the GDP in the US? And I think I don't know if this translates as much with somebody talking through it as it would when you watch this live. So I'll post the video in the chat. I think everybody should spend time watching it just because it's a really good example of where I think AI is today, and I think it can kind of paint a picture of where it might go into the future with these emerging capabilities. But it has the ability to analyze images and do like mathematical analysis, like in this case, simulating future GDP. And it has different simulated scenarios based on, again, it's two data sets, it's training knowledge and its ability to not just be a little chat interface that we can have write poems in the style of Shakespeare, but a real business tool that can scrape information and analyze information and then start inferring future information based off of what it's learning. So today we're going to talk a lot about that, about these emerging capabilities, what it means for organizations that are trying to use this technology, because it's cool to get up and say like, oh, we have like multimodality and we have high rates of intelligence. But the reason, at least to me, the reason all this is exciting is because every time there is an advancement in intelligence, it opens up new use cases and new problems that we can solve with these tools. So let's talk about Anthropic, that Opus model that I was just showing you. And by the way, I'm going to, for everybody here, I'm going to go ahead and post the link in the chat that I had hoped to just watch live with everyone here today. But check out that video if you haven't seen it yet. The audio makes it a lot better. Okay. So with Anthropic, we're going to walk through kind of some background of the company and what these latest models have brought to the market and what we're seeing them be used for. So for folks that don't know, the team that started Anthropic, like a lot of them are co-founders of the GPT-3 paper. So like these are basically former OpenAI engineers that I think somewhere along the line looked at the technology space, saw the opportunity, but also decided to take maybe a different model than what they saw happening in other areas of the industry, and really focus on what they call constitutional AI, or AI that has safety frameworks and mechanisms and explicit safety training built in to their deployment process. And by the way, I think it's important to note, like, most companies developing AI models have like a safety department or like a trust and safety team, right? What makes Anthropic fairly unique is like that's the foundation of their business, is like their whole thesis for AI is really centered around focusing on this constitutional model that allows them to develop highly controllable models, and models that don't say like harmful things or do harmful things, or express a lot of bias. And I think they're investing a lot of time in that foundation, where I think maybe other models you see out there may not have that same foundation in safety and controllability. And that's why I'm a big believer in just directionally where I think they will land in the industry over the next few years. So another thing that is pretty exciting. So Claude isn't going to launch Skynet. I don't know. I've actually never seen Terminator, and it's something I'm embarrassed about. I feel like as an American, not seeing Terminator is like, it feels like a crime. So I'll get around. I feel like at this point it might be too real though. I feel like psychologically, I don't know if I'm actually prepared to watch Terminator in the era of AI. Anyway, so Claude and Anthropic, I think another area that's like really just unique as a data point about the company is the speed at which they've been bringing models to market. Claude 1 was first released in like early 2023, and Claude 2 released like I think last fall sometime, maybe in the winter in 2024. And then Claude 3 just came out like a few months ago. So it seems as if they're on this tempo of having a major iteration launch at a really rapid pace. And so, and each new iteration of Claude so far has come with like notable improvements in intelligence. So anyway, I think it's cool to see a company focus on safety, but also focused on like shipping. And these people ship. And it shows, and I think that it's why a lot of customers are starting to, I think, build a lot of trust with how they do business. So, again, they're focused on constitutional principles, efficiency, and then alignment. I think when you talk about trust and safety in AI, you all, if you've been listening to podcasts and paying attention into the space yet, you've probably heard about alignment, the idea that AI is going to not do things that are misaligned with the incentives or world of humanity. And I do think, some people talk about that like it's just like a sci-fi thriller or whatever. Like I certainly don't know. Like if I had a crystal ball, I'd love to look into the future and see what what could happen in that sphere. But one thing I know for sure is like, even if there's like a 1% chance that AI goes Skynet on us, I don't know if I actually don't know if I'm using Skynet right in the context, because I've never seen Terminator. But if AI were to go full Skynet on us, I think it's nice to know that some of the people on the forefront of this technology are actually thinking about alignment as a priority for their development and for the models and releases. So that's a little bit about the company. Hopefully that gives you some context for like where they come from and where they fit in the market, because there's a lot of companies out there that are making large models right now. And I think that really that emphasis on safety, trust. I used Skynet right. Thank you, Isaiah. I'm glad to hear it. I'm going to have to watch that movie. So Claude 3 came out, and there's actually 3 Claude 3s. All right. And the reason there's 3 Claude 3s is because, and this is very true, there is no one size fits all model in Gen AI. And really what that means is like, when companies are releasing these models and they're running their training cycles, they have this choice of like, how much training data do we put in this model? And there's a direct correlation between how much training data you put into the model and how intelligent the model is, right? That makes perfect sense. But there's also a direct correlation with how much training data you put into the model and how much it costs to run inference on that model, right? So basically, think about intelligence. You should think about intelligence as like a computing trade-off, at least for right now. Maybe one day in the future, like intelligence will be super low cost and there you won't have to make a trade-off. But for now, you should think of it as a computing trade-off of like, there are hyper intelligent models, like one we'll talk about in a second called Opus. In fact, let's talk about it now. There are hyper intelligence models like the one on the right-hand side of this slide called Opus. And but that model is like upwards of 40 times more expensive to run than Haiku, right? And so I think the way to think of how these different models fit into a company or a startup or an enterprise or even just our lives as professionals is like Haiku is a really great general purpose model from Claude 3 that is fast, wicked fast, making it really good for, if you've heard of a use case called RAG or retrieval augmented generation, Haiku is incredible at use cases like that, because use cases like that don't really require the model to use a lot of its training data to provide provide information back to you. It's usually using your private enterprise data. And so that makes Claude 3 really effective because it can understand context and it's super fast. So it's great for chat bots. Sonnet is like their middle tier model. Sonnet, again, it's a little bit more expensive than Haiku, not a whole lot, just marginally more expensive than Haiku. And it's a little bit smarter and a little bit slower, but it's still pretty fast. I can show, I'll actually, in a little bit, if you all want to see it, if you're interested, I can show you a benchmark that gives you the different speeds of them. But in either case, I think what I would encourage anybody to take away from the fact that these three models exist is that Haiku and Sonnet are probably the right choice to experiment with if you're building something new and you want the latest in intelligence and performance. Whereas Opus, the way I think of Opus right now is it's really good for like crunching numbers, math, like heavy tasks that require a lot of thinking and computing. And Opus, another way to think about Opus is, Opus is significantly more intelligent than Sonnet, but it's not quite as cost effective as Sonnet yet. So some people could think about Opus as a model that they might build on today, because they know in a year the cost will go down or the speed will get better, right? And so you can almost think of it as like if you're a startup who's trying to go to market and you think your product's going to launch in 2025, even though Opus is more expensive, if you're not going to production until 2025, there's actually a calculation where it makes a lot of sense to build on Opus. So you're using the latest and greatest technology and inference. But that takes the forethought of a founder that really believes in how much AI will continue to advance over time. Some people think we've peaked, but I think people that are paying attention, hopefully the people on this call, know that we are really just getting started when it comes to AI, which is freaky, but pretty cool too. So I keep talking about intelligence. We're going to hear that a lot through the rest of our careers. It's going to be, I think it's going to be the thing people are talking about for at least the next decade. I think it'll be a decade, like before this is even yeah. I don't think we'll be done with this transformation in a decade, but I think it'll take like 5 years before we look around and we're like, holy cow, our lives are different. But in either case, the Opus 3 model has kind of just crushed benchmarks in terms of math, graduate level language, complex reasoning, coding, which is one of my favorites. It's incredibly good at software development. And so,
hey, Trevor.
Yes.
Hey, real quick before you move on, can you go back to that other slide real quick? I just had a question for you.
Go for it. Which
No, not that. The one with the, yes. So would you, I've kind of read up a little bit, and I think you brought up a good point about Opus and its capabilities with mainly scraping the web more efficiently and effectively than Sonnet and Haiku, right?
Well,
Like-
that's just so. It's a great question. So there's something that Opus supports that Sonnet and Haiku don't support, and it's called tool usage. And so Opus is able to transact with tools, and those tools can do different things. And they can query a database, they can scrape a web page, right? And that's something that only Opus supports right now. Now you can build that type of functionality on your own and wrap it around models like Sonnet and Haiku. But that tool usage is right now as a native feature is only on Opus today.
Right. So that's what's making Opus so exciting right now, because of its broad capabilities of being able to multitask at that type of level, really, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's that ability to be so if a model can respond and to your questions and do mathematics and give you code suggestions, like that's cool. And I think everybody's familiar with that idea. But yeah, what's new is we're entering this era of models that can understand your intent and then take their own action based on that intent, and not just respond with some next word prediction string like we're all used to, but actually like go out and look for something. I think we all have heard this vision, right, of like one day you'll be able to tell your AI assistant, hey, go transfer money from my checking account to my Robinhood account and invest it in the S&P 500, and it's going to be able to do all those tasks for you. And so that capability of tool usage in Opus is what's going to unlock that type of functionality in the future. I think anyway. If it doesn't, we're going to be in a world where everybody's just writing that software manually and integrating it into LLMs, and maybe that will scale. I don't know.
No, that's kind of my thing, is like I'm loving what Opus is being able to do by getting stuff fairly current.
Yeah.
Like it's not like, oh, we don't have that information because no one put it into,
exactly
into my brain
right.
yet,
exactly.
and that's what's fascinating about how fast like Claude 3 Opus can actually move and help us scale. Because I know you didn't get to show it in the video, but one thing from the first time you kind of showed me this and some of the people on stream was how quickly it was able to go from 2000 to 2024 and 10 different countries' GDPs all at the same time. Just a little ripper, just going through and getting all that information. It's like, how is it even getting this? Like ChatGPT can't even get, stuff past, 2022 right now or whatever, unless you pay for it. So it's like, it's unbelievable. So that was my point, like the capabilities of getting current stuff. And
Totally, absolutely. It unlocks a lot, and like this is why for me it's like just I felt I'm 31 years old, folks. I don't know if I look it. I actually think I look every bit of 31, if I'm being honest. I think I might look a little older than 31. And I didn't, I got an iPhone in high school, but I wasn't working in the industry back then, and I wasn't part of the whole internet revolution. I'm like caught the tail end of the cloud revolution, right? But like getting to be like, I feel like all of us are super. I think we're lucky to get to be like in our like working era, like at this phase in our lives, seeing, because we're gonna get to see the start of this and the end of this still. Most of the people here, hopefully, and yeah, so it's cool. But yeah, great, like super great call out. And by the way, love the hat.
I earned it.
You did, man. You earned that stinking hat. All right. So Isaiah brought up a great point about like what tool, like the ability to use tools with a model like Opus does. It unlocks like recency, being able to find like the latest data from Google or from other websites, being able to invoke other tools on your behalf. And Claude 3 is now multimodal. And so, again, you all are, if you've used ChatGPT, chat interfaces, right? Ask question, get response. Multimodal models, particularly multimodals like Claude, also accept images now. So now they're able to process PDFs, JPEGs, PNG files, and do analysis. And what this does is really explode, multiply. This is like what do people call it? A force accelerator, whatever word you want to use. But what it does is really expand what you can deliver in the enterprise with a model like this, right? Because chat interfaces are cool. Like everybody likes chat interface. Everybody likes an assistant. I use AI assistants, especially as a developer. Anytime I'm writing code, I'm heavily relying on AI assistants. But there's a lot of use cases that enterprises want to tackle that don't have much to do with a chat interface at all. That a chat interface isn't the right way to solve the problem. And so I think if you look at the right-hand side of the slide, it does a great job breaking down how something like multimodality, the ability to process images and analyze those images and do object detection and image classification and understand data in images unlocks in the enterprise. Another thing, by the way, like if folks here have used Amazon or AWS and have worked with Amazon's like what I would call like higher level AI services. So think services like Transcribe, Poly. I don't know if anybody else can think of some AI services, throw them in the chat. There's a whole bunch of these AI services. There's these forecast. There are these point models that can do very specific things. And like analyzing images is one thing that some of that like a tool like recognition can do. And so tools like recognition and textract, which were like have been amazing tools in the enterprise for a long time, which I think they're going to continue to exist because they've been really refined for that use case. But some customers are starting to look at these capabilities and say like, hey, should I use textract, or could I just use a multi-purpose model like Claude 3 to analyze text from documents and scrape information out of financial documents at scale, and like in the case of recognition, to identify objects in photos. And there's a lot of considerations with that. Cost is one that people need to think about. But what I've started to witness is like a lot of people will have a preference for, like, if all things are the same, if there's no major cost difference, a lot of people are gravitating towards just using generative AI models because they are general purpose, and you don't have to go like learn textract or recognition always. You could just, if you already have experimented with Claude for some other use case, you can just now use that same interface, the same prompting method for Claude, that same Bedrock API that you might have been hitting to initiate and engage with Claude before, can be used for many different AI use cases because of multimodality, right? And I like to talk about it through the lens of use cases, because I think otherwise it just sounds like a cool trick. Cool, it can do images now, but like that's really not what this is. This is like taking an already incredibly effective technology and maybe like doubling or tripling the number of use cases that it's capable of, because now there's a whole new way for it to ingest information. And there's a lot of use cases where now you can just automate document analysis and entity extraction and object detection and image analysis with a general purpose model. And that's a very back end type of function. Right? It's not a chat interface front end. That's a back end thing that now you can start replacing certain back end capabilities with models like Claude. And another thing that you may know, you may not know about Claude, it has one of the longest context windows in the industry too. Makes it, which again, a long context window is very important for the enterprise because they want to integrate their own data. A context window is how much, when you send a prompt into the model, how much data can you cram into that prompt? And Claude 3 has one of the largest context windows, making it a really good fit for a lot of those use cases where you need to upload big images or a PowerPoint deck into a prompt, or you need to upload a annual report into the prompt to get some information back. This is a slide that like might help somebody decide which ones to use. But again, I think in my experience, I tend to start with Haiku and then move my way up if I find that there's a task that I don't need. And I will say, sometimes when I'm doing document analysis and I want to pull graphs from images, I'll just jump straight to Opus. So, Sonnet and Haiku are pretty good at it too, but Opus is just so great at it, particularly mathematical things, that sometimes I'll jump straight to that. But if I'm building with customers, I'm almost always trying Haiku first and then going to Sonnet if Haiku doesn't seem to deliver exactly what they need. Excuse me. And so, yeah, I guess a few other things that are relevant to developers, or one thing that's relevant to developers, is there is also now support for JSON responses. This is something that you could do before, but it wasn't always reliable, and now it's highly reliable. If you just say like return in JSON an image, which I'll show you all that in action in one of the demos in a second. It makes it very easy or very reliable to get that JSON response. By the way, like, again, that sounds like, oh, gee whiz, cool, it's JSON. No, like that means that now it's very easy to integrate this into your applications. If you are a developer, and if you've been in the industry for a while, or even if you haven't and you've just been listening to folks in the industry for a while, there's a big crazy secret. And basically, I don't know if you all know this, the whole internet, the entire internet, everything is just like a bunch of JSON files being sent back and forth. That's all it is. It's like 99.9% of the internet is just like JSON being moved between two machines. And so support for JSON is very important. Word. That's right. That's right, Mr. Roberts. Word indeed. Word indeed. Which by the way, when I first learned that, when I first had that realization that the internet is basically just a bunch of JSON files getting sent around, I was actually kind of depressed because I was like, man, like at the time I really didn't like editing JSON, but now with LLMs I don't mind editing JSON so much. There's less brackets that I miss out on, and commas that I put in the wrong place. Yeah. JSON and Go. Yep. Totally. Yeah. You definitely, you have to have outputs. You have to have developer friendly outputs to integrate this into, especially backend type functions like that. So I think a couple of things I want to point out here in terms of the skills that Opus bring to the table, and the one that we were talking about earlier, tool use, agentic behavior. Again, this is the ability for it to go like hit web pages on your behalf and look at more fresh data. So that tool use is something that I haven't experimented with much yet. I'm really excited to see what opportunities that opens up. But I think really when I'm looking at Claude 3, I'm thinking of it as inspiration for what's to come. Yeah, they say it's twice as accurate. It's very good at RAG. One thing with RAG, retrieval augmented generation and long context windows, there's this challenge. It's this test called the needle in a haystack test, where you'll put in. It's a pretty cool test, actually. It's a good test. For those who haven't heard of it, you basically put in like a whole. The needle in a haystack test is you use a model with a large context window like Claude 3, and you put in like a Shakespearean novel or something, like some crazy huge document or bit of data. And then in that Shakespearean novel that you put in, you have one line in the middle that's like, in order to eliminate fire, pour water on it, or whatever. Like you'll put one line of data in that, and then you'll send all of that into the then you'll prompt the model. And there had been instances in the past, particularly in Claude 2, the previous version of Claude, where if you did that, sometimes the context in the middle of a huge document would get lost, and the model wouldn't be able to retrieve that bit of data. But now Claude 3 is actually quite good and far more effective. And I've seen this in action already. Like I was building RAG use cases on Claude 2, and as soon as Claude 3 came out, customers started leveraging that, and it just performs way better. Claude 2 used to say like, I don't know a lot, and Claude 3 very rarely says I don't know. It's just an overall a much better, more reliable experience, in addition to all the cool intelligence and developer friendly upgrades that were made. Sonnet, again, it's like that balanced model, focused on speed and cost effectiveness. I really like to use it for coding. Image analysis is something that I've been exploring with a lot of customers, because for a lot of customers, building out an image analysis pipeline with recognition or another machine learning model on their own seemed hard, but to do image analysis with an LLM doesn't seem hard. And I think that's true. Like with an LLM, it's actually just like a couple of API calls, or one API call to be specific. Whereas with these other things, you tend to build out these. I mean, you would still have to plug that API call into a pipeline, but in either case, like it simplifies the ability to do a lot of these things. And so I think what we're going to see is, like, while something like image analysis isn't a new thing, it's something the industry's been able to do for a while. I think we're going to see a lot more companies integrating image analysis features into their existing products, because the barrier to entry is much, much lower now to do image analysis at scale. And then again, it's really great at coding. Highly suggest using a coding assistant backed by models like this. Q is my coding assistant of choice right now. And sometimes I just hit Claude 3 directly. And translation as well. That's another cool feature. It's kind of a niche feature, I think, for certain. Actually, you know what? I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say it's a niche feature, because that's not true. And in fact, what translation really allows for is like people from different regions of the world that speak different languages to use models like Claude. But it has gotten a lot better at translating to different languages. Is what I mean there. So again, just some of those things that happen when you throw billions and billions of little data points into a model. Sometimes it pops out and it's really good at something that it wasn't good at before, like translation and image analysis. Well, and Haiku again, super fast, great for chatbots, and along with the constitutional model that Anthropic adopts, they also have trained their models to be like very empathetic, and so they're quite good. If you are building a front end experience that is a chat interface, Haiku is often not only the least expensive choice available, but it's also just really good at doing that from a performance perspective and from a data retrieval and extraction perspective. So if you're looking at things like retrieval augmented generation, or you just need some type of general purpose chat interface that you want to embed into a piece of software, Haiku is definitely something to consider, to experiment with. To contextualize this, it's fast. Claude 3 can read an entire book in under 2 seconds. Now, which book is that? Is that AWS for Dummies, or is that Infinite Jest? I don't know. I wish they would have clarified which book. I'm going to assume it's like a medium-ish size book. But in 2 seconds, that's pretty good. That's faster than me. Anyway. It takes me like, I'd say, like 2 weeks to read a book on average. If I quantify in terms of just time, it's maybe like 4 to 6 hours. So I'd say Haiku has me beat. and again, I think as I'm closing down here and I switch to my demo on Claude doing image analysis, I think this is the last thing I'll call out here, is that it's just it really is purpose built for enterprise, right? Like like Anthropic is not like well, maybe they would call themselves this, right? But from my view, that they're just relentlessly focused on innovating for real world adoption use cases that the enterprise can start to explore today, and that they can trust with the accuracy, with the emphasis on alignment and constitutional AI, and not causing harm being the core tenets of how they're developing these models. And that was a lot of talking, a lot of slides. I start to get anxious anytime that I'm showing a PowerPoint deck for more than like 20 minutes without a demo. So please, to ease my anxiety, let me pivot to a demo. And what I'd like to show you all is that multimodality in action. I mentioned that multimodality thing the ability to process images opens up a world of different use cases. One use case that I've been exploring, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here for just a second, because I need to pull up a file. So just hold, please. Where is my file? I'm looking for a file named house. So I'm going to sort alphabetically, because we're going to analyze a picture of a house. Who would have thunk it? Wow. I've lost my picture of a house, everybody. Ah, found it. Phew. I was getting nervous there. I really thought I was about to like bomb and lose a picture of a house. Would have had to, I guess that's a pretty easy problem to solve. We could just look up another house in real time on the old internets. Okay. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. Multimodality. So first of all, this multimodality with Claude 3 on Bedrock demo is brought to you by the AWS samples repo. This is a repo that I've been working on with some buds of mine at Amazon, some good buds. And those good buds are, that's a good idea. Ask Claude to create an image. This repo, I just typed in the chat, folks. You don't have to be a Python whiz. You just got to kind of know the very, very basics of it to get these working. It's an incredible repo to experiment with all these different Claude 3 use cases. Image analysis, multimodality, there's a chat use case, integrating LLMs with Redshift. And what I love about this repo is almost all of the, I'll go into this image analysis code base I'm about to show you. Almost all of the apps are literally like 2 very short Python scripts. It's just a Streamlit interface and then calls to the LLM on most occasions. And the reason I like that is because these are powerful little ways to experiment with different use cases with this code base. And even if you're not like a Python wizard, if you just can kind of figure out the basics, or if you're comfortable like copying and pasting code and asking Claude to explain what it does to you, like a lot of people could figure this out pretty intuitively. Python's cool like that. Okay, so that app that I was just showing you here is this image analysis app. The way this works is one of 2 ways, actually. You can just upload an image and it's going to analyze that image and give its default responses, or you can customize it. So I'm going to start with just the defaults here. So I put my house image in my application. And when I click this analyze image button, I'm going to make a call to Claude 3 behind the Bedrock API on AWS. And it is going to analyze this image of the house. Okay. I'm analyzing this image of the house. It's got a few windows. It's got a door. One interesting thing that about what I'm doing here is I didn't give the model any information about the house other than just the picture, right? So it doesn't know anything about houses, the housing market, about real estate. I just gave it this picture. I didn't try to steer it at all. Basically what I'm saying is I didn't prompt engineer what I just did to give me the response that I want. Instead, what I just got is what a JSON response that Claude it prioritized based on its training data, right? So I'm looking here, I see based on this photo, Claude says, cool, we have a residential neighborhood, single family home. It starts to classify the different colors in the home, the different materials, the different features and landscaping. So this is like already a pretty good, we're seeing analysis of the image. We're seeing object detection within the image. We're seeing descriptions of the image. Like this is like pretty, if you haven't experimented with something like recognition, like this is on par, arguably in some cases superior to what is capable with other tools like that. So, I mean, I'm impressed by this by itself. But the way that most companies would think about this, right, is if you're building an image analysis pipeline. So like if you're building, if you're building an image analysis pipeline, well, chances are you've got like engineers and a business that understands exactly what you're trying to learn from those images, right? I can't imagine many use cases where you would say, like, oh, we're just going to ingest a bunch of images and see what the LLM thinks. I think what's going to be more common actually is instead of that, a company like if let's say for example, I'm a real estate company and I'd like to start analyzing an image so I don't know if you ever use Zillow and they have this thing called like the Zestimate, right? Let's say that a company wanted to use image analysis to inform that Zestimate, right? Or something like that. Like this is common. There's a lot of companies in the real estate market that build models that can predict the price of real estate, and the images of the home are a part of that, right? Well, if you're building a use case like that, you probably know exactly what you want to learn about a house, right? You might say like, I want to know how many floors the house is. I want to know the quality of materials of the house. I want to know how big the backyard of the house is, right? And so with Claude and these image analysis capabilities, I'll take this JSON that I used previously, and I'm going to cut it down. And let's say instead of colors, I don't know if anybody in the chat has ideas of something we could try to get Claude to extract from this image. Let me know. I'm going to think it over. I think maybe what I'm going to have it do is give me a number of like roof material. Okay. Yeah. Love that. Let's do roof material. See if I can do my prompt correctly here. Material. Oh, I love that. So I'm going to do roof. Yeah. I love that because I can do roof. And I hope one fun thing about this demo is that like, because it's an LLM, like I can actually like, sometimes I can give JSON that's like totally not valid JSON at all, and it will still like understand what I'm trying to tell it, which is cool. But in the real world, you would probably want like well-formatted JSON. So say, okay, material, I love this train of thought, material. So we're going to say roof, siding, square footage of the house. Square footage of the house, I think I would need some more angles, but I do think it would be possible. You would probably need multiple angles of a photo and then do some more complex analysis to get square footage because you need to see the width and depth. But you know what, that Isaiah, that does make me wonder. Oh, that's a cool idea, because what I have not tried is putting in 3D images, right? Like if I could get a 3D rendering of a home that had like square footage and like, I wonder if it could figure that out. That's a fascinating one to consider. All right. Anyway, roof material. We're gonna get siding, and what else? I got roof material. I got siding. I feel like that's good. Yeah, and like as you imagine, we can just keep putting in different fields that we want it to return, and it's pretty capable of identifying most objects. It's been trained on a lot of data. So anyway, now I'm putting in this. I'm saying I want to control exactly what information I'm getting back. I'm going to analyze this image again, and let's hope that it tells me the material that the roof and the siding are made out of. I'm based on my human analysis of that image, I am estimating that the roof is shingles and the siding is wood. That is, as a human running inference on this image, that's what I think. Shingles, wood. Oh, he nailed it, or she nailed it, or they nailed it. I guess they nailed it. Okay, they nailed it, and they gave us asphalt shingles. They gave us panels. So I think the what I want to demonstrate here though is, again, this image analysis use case, when you can start piping, like automating ingestion of images at scale and explicitly getting information about those images, that allows you to create a data set that you can do a lot with. The data sets I've seen, the use cases I've seen built on top of data sets like this for image analysis with generative AI. Obviously, I mentioned custom model training. So if you're a machine learning shop and you need to train custom models, analyzing and extracting information from the image is a big, like that's like the first step to training some type of custom, or a lot of custom models anyway, that would be based off of attributes of images. Another way I've seen this used is reverse image lookup, right? Because if I want to do if think about a reverse image lookup, you upload an image and you do a search. You want to say, show me similar images. Well, the first step to show you similar images is for a model to first determine what is this image that I'm looking at? What are some attributes of it? And so with this, once it's been condensed down to something like a JSON of all these other features, this could be sent into some search capability to say, show me images that have similar attributes to this one. And again, that's how you might use this to back a reverse image search use case. So I think there's probably more fun use cases we'll continue to discover as people experiment with these technologies. But hopefully that helped folks see and contextualize how you might see a company that wants to adopt this, build it into their business, right? Not all companies will need to do image analysis, but some industries that come up for me would definitely be like, I mean, obviously one like real estate looking at this would be relevant. I could see insurance. Oh, Tom's reading my mind, right? Yeah, imagine insurance to like appraise, assess homes. Like whenever I got home insurance, I had to tell them if I had a pool or a hot tub, or if I had any dogs, or I had to tell them all the different materials my house was made out of. So just uploading images, that would have been a lot easier. And honestly, it would have been better. Like I would rather have just sent photos to my insurance provider than have to tell them over the phone. My insurance provider's never seen my house. That's crazy. They've never seen my house. They just insured it. Like I would feel way more comfortable, and I would know, and I would feel like I am more confident that I have the coverage that I need if they would use something like this to inspect and then give me a quote, you know? Maybe they should have asked me for images. Maybe I need a new insurance provider. If anybody else's insurance provider asked for pictures of their home, let me know. Maybe I need to find a new one. Obviously there could be potential medical use cases for this in the future. I do think that's an area where you have to be careful to make sure that you just have to rigorously test use cases like that, because we're talking about people's health, right? But I do think that there's definitely some sort of medical imagery considerations here. Yeah, I think there's so many industries that this could apply to, but definitely I like Tom's mention of insurance. That's one that yeah, like I can imagine this being used for like assessments of like damaged materials. Like I've seen people use this to say like to do inspections of like factories or something like that, to look at different pipes to see if they need to be replaced or maintained. Just to like imagine like a little drone in like an Amazon warehouse, like flying up in the ceiling and looking at all the things instead of like a person with a flashlight or whatever. So there's some really interesting applications of this, and I'm excited about it. I don't know about you all, but I think it's pretty cool. Okay, it's 6:58, and that means we got a half hour left according to the invite here. I'm going to ease us in. We're done with Claude, everybody. That was a hard transition. We're done with Claude, and now we're going to talk about Bedrock. Briefly, I'm going to give you how about this in the chat? If you don't know much about Bedrock, or like you want to learn about Bedrock, or you're curious about Bedrock, like let me know. Otherwise, what I'll transition to is like we'll have this open discussion about different use cases that this technology can apply to. I think it would be useful to go to the latest and greatest on Bedrock, but one thing I'm always fearful of is telling people about things that they already know everything about. So I'm gonna breeze through this and let me know if you'll have questions about Bedrock. So Amazon Bedrock is a AWS service that is our leading service for accessing foundation models through a single API, right? It can be used for a lot of different use cases. It is a full-blown AWS service, just like Lambda or EC2 or RDS. It is a full-blown AWS service. That means, by the way, which I love to contextualize it this way, is because a lot of people, particularly because when you talk about AI, you're talking about data, and when you talk about companies, you're talking about their private intellectual property or their data that they consider like a secret. And Bedrock allows companies to have a little bit more assurance that that data will not be used to like train models. That's an assurance that customers get, is that it would not be used to train models. But also it's built with the same security that every other AWS service is built on top of, right? Our AWS service teams build and certify services based on the same rigorous security standards between service teams. So that means the same security process that we went through to launch something like Lambda is the same security process we go through to launch something like Bedrock. So customers can really rest assured that it is a full, like, it basically, if you trust Amazon to run other services, there's no real argument that Bedrock is not equally as secure, right? I do think there's a data conversation to be had. And some companies, I'll mention a feature today, that some companies actually prefer to run their own open source models because of some concerns over data privacy. And that's even an option now on Bedrock, to run your own open source models that you've customized, which is a new thing we'll talk about. I see Dwight say he's curious about the use cases. So I'll make sure we run through this and leave, like, I'll be done with this by no later than 7:15. And then we'll open up the mics and have that use case discussion. So Amazon Bedrock simplifies a lot of things. I think the thing, when I'm getting feedback outside of security and trust being a big reason customers prefer Bedrock, choice is a big reason, because so many different models are supported. I'll show you the list in a second. Like, and the list is so big now, my head is just exploded. It's hard to the pace and the amount of models we're supporting now is just so large. Most models you've heard of or that you want are available on AWS. And of course, it's also easy to customize and integrate. AWS is certainly known for building services that are very developer friendly and easy for developers to hack around on and customize. And that's no exception either. Deeply integrated with other AWS services, with third-party services, with standard data sources, so it makes it kind of easy to use. If you already know AWS, it's like it's very simple to take the knowledge you have of AWS and just start applying it to Bedrock. I mentioned there's a lot of models. I mentioned if you build on Bedrock, you have some choices. This is what I'm talking about. Okay, across all of these different companies, AI21 Labs, Anthropic, Cohere, Meta, Mistral, Stability AI, and Amazon ourselves. We're releasing our own models for all different types of purposes, and I think over time, there's going to be place for a lot of different companies that specialize in different areas of intelligence and of AI and capabilities for these models. And I don't think we're anywhere close to knowing who will be the standard. Who will be the iPhone? If you like, or what's a better analogy? Like, is it a refrigerator? Everybody calls their fridge a refrigerator, but that's actually a brand. You get what I'm saying? Is this translate? You know how we Google things? Well, I think one day we might have a model that people are like, oh, I'm going to Anthropic that thing, but I don't think we're there yet. I think we're still waiting for that like single like leader to really emerge. But Xerox. I need more context. on Xerox. I applied to Xerox, one of the first companies I applied to in technology. They shot me down. Look at me now, Xerox. Look at me now. All right, everybody.
I think he's referring to that back in the day, people would only be able to make copies on a Xerox machine.
Yeah, they would say,
So
let me
for
Xerox
us
that.
older people,
Oh,
they
yes.
would
Thank
say,
you.
"Oh, let me
Thank you.
Xerox that."
Yes.
So
thank
you grew
That-
up in an area where there's Canon copiers, there's other copy machines out there. So leave it up to me, a 43-year-old friend of yours, to explain some of those things for you.
I appreciate that a lot, Isaiah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I need that experience.
And I promise we'll never listen to Pandora when we're together.
No, you can listen to Pandora, man. You can listen. There's nothing wrong with Pandora. All right.
No, I'm saying that
my mom uses Pandora. My mom loves Pandora, dude. I have a joke that old people use Pandora. And I think I might have struck a nerve with Isaiah on that once.
It's my favorite. It's my favorite joke
sorry.
ever. I love it. It's like the best thing ever.
I use Spotify, but I did just see that Amazon Music just released a feature where you can prompt it and it'll create a playlist. So you can say like, give me a breakup playlist inspired by the Grateful Dead, and it'll just build a playlist for you. I think it's pretty cool. I think that's pretty cool. I do wish Spotify had that, because there's a lot of instances where I'm in a mood, but like I find that I keep getting just the same music over and over again. And I would like to, they used to have this idea of like a taste breaker playlist. I wish I could just prompt my own taste breaker, be like stuff that I haven't heard that is a jam band that's a little funky and jazzy, and I'd like to just see what the playlist looks like. Anyway, I digress. We probably got some builders here, so I'm talking a lot about Bedrock, and I was prompting Bedrock earlier in the image analysis demo, and how you interact with Bedrock is via one of these three methods. Okay, you integrate it with Amazon SDKs. I use Boto 3, but there's a lot of SDKs that support Bedrock. Of course, you might all know the AWS console. That is a way that you can log in, experiment with different features. It's a great way to, honestly, I hit the console a lot. People talk smack on the console. It's like, yeah, you probably shouldn't always be using the console to launch production applications, but it's great for quick experimentation. You are not an inferior engineer if you use the console. Okay. You might be an inferior engineer if you launch a large number of EC2 instances manually via the console, but you are not an inferior engineer if you launch a couple of instances to do a test in the console. That is perfectly acceptable. Do not let the haters on Reddit tell you otherwise. Okay. And you can use LangChain. LangChain, if you're not familiar with, it's kind of like the framework for prompting right now that people are gravitating towards. I like it. I've heard some different. It's funny. Lately I've heard different opinions on LangChain. I've heard a couple of peers of mine have said that they prefer to use SDKs. I like LangChain a lot, mostly because it's very well documented and there's a lot of examples. It's pretty extensible, and it makes it easy to wrap additional Python logic into your prompts. And by the way, I guess it's probably easy to do that with Amazon SDKs too, but I'm a noob developer. Like I really only started writing Python code like a year ago. So I like simplifying things, and LangChain simplifies it for me.
Yeah, if you're definitely with Python, LangChain is the way to go. All the research that I've done recently would go that route. I don't know, but I also do JavaScript. So like I think what I've also read is AWS SDKs is better for some of the TypeScript stuff, but you might know more about that than me or find a better answer.
Yeah. I think it like let's just look at AWS SDKs. I know we have like so many SDKs. I pretty much always use Python, but there's a Java SDK, a .NET SDK, there's a C++ SDK. What? C++? We got Kotlin, we got Node.js, we got PHP, we got Ruby. There's so many. Oh my gosh. Wait, hold up. I'm going to put this on my screen. I actually sometimes like I am just delighted whenever whenever even me as somebody, like I've worked at Amazon for a couple of years now, and I talk to customers about Amazon every day, and nobody's ever asked me how many SDKs are supported. That's so many SDKs to invoke Amazon Web Services. What is Kotlin? Does anybody know what Kotlin is? I've never heard of that. Oh my gosh. SAP ABAP. What? No, that's great. If anybody's hitting the AWS console with SAP ABAP, respect. If you're hitting it with C++, respect. Okay. Sorry, everybody. Oh, Kotlin is a superset of Java. Okay, cool. That's a new one for me. I use Python because I have about an 8th grade reading level, and Python is about there. Okay. Last thing, everybody, and then we're gonna open up the mics and we're gonna kind of slow it down and let everybody go eat their dinner and hang out with their families and do whatever they do at after 7 p.m. on a Thursday. But first, I want to share some of these new Bedrock goodies that just dropped. I believe on Tuesday, might have been Monday this week, but we dropped like a lot of Bedrock features, so many that I can't show them to you. Instead, I'm going to just explain them to you. And if anybody sees one of these that stand out as interesting, type it in the chat or come off mute, and I'm happy to dig more into it. But just to give you the rundown here, new models, we support Opus now. There's a new stable diffusion model that we just supported, just like a bunch of new models. You saw that slide. There's like, I don't know, 50 models now or something. A lot more models are available, new Titan models, Titan image and Titan text embedding is getting an update. So there's a lot of new models to get down into the nooks and crannies of different use cases. A model evaluation framework just released. Customers oftentimes ask us what models should we use, what models should we start with, and so there is now tooling to automate that or allow humans in your organization to give their own opinions on the models that you're considering. I will say, just because I think it's a divisive topic, and I think it's a helpful time in the industry to provide opinions instead of like just being ambiguous and saying, "Oh yeah, you should just go evaluate all these different models and see which one's the best one for your use case." My opinion is starting to develop to. It's a big reason why we're talking about Claude here, towards like a general purpose high intelligence model that can run at low cost is never a bad choice. And so I kind of just start with that. Like I start with Claude 3, and then I would tend to only engage another model whenever I know that Claude 3 can't do that. Because I know Claude 3 is highly intelligent. I know it's safe. I know it's very inexpensive. And I have a high degree of confidence that Claude 3 will continue to improve and support the same APIs over time. And so I like that security of going with a model like that. And again, I think it solves most of the problem the customer need in a really cost-effective way. That said, like there are instances, especially when you get deeper into the AI rabbit hole, where you need to do automated evaluation for certain things. And that is now supported in Bedrock. Model customization. This one I'm personally excited about because I work with financial services customers. And for some reason or another, highly regulated industries like financial services and the Department of Defense, in my experience, they don't trust quite so easily as certain maybe less regulated industries, right? These are highly regulated industries. And so because of the regulation, I think they tend to sometimes make decisions a little slower, be a little bit more protective of their data. And one decision that I'm seeing come up sometimes, not often, some financial services customers are really with it and really on the bleeding edge and want to experiment with the latest and greatest. But some have use cases where one of two things happen. They either want to build their own, they want to take their own data and build their own data product and model for other people. There's a model out there called like Bloomberg GPT, which is trained by Bloomberg. That's like an example of something you can take like an open source model and train it on your own data and make it a whole new product. So that's a reason you might want to customize a model, is like you might want to offer a model to the public. And so you might want to customize an open source model with your own data and provide a public facing offering. You may also just not want to use a closed source model. You might prefer to train your own model. You might even one day have a legal requirement to do that. I don't know. I think regulation in this space is still early, but I think the point I want to make is this feature allows you to take an open source model like Llama 3, which is a really popular open source model, and there's a few others that we can do this with as well, and fine tune the base model so that way it's customized to your data sets. So something that, again, I think customers that like to be in control of their data and like to control their infrastructure will benefit from this, because previously, you could do this on AWS before, but before you had to use like EC2 or maybe SageMaker. And now, once your model is fine tuned, you can launch that model on Bedrock. It can be hosted on a Bedrock service. So, which means it's serverless. So pay as you go, right? Agents and knowledge bases. This is something that's existed for a while. It's just an easy way to do RAG and a way to automate stuff in Bedrock. And it just got a lot better this week. Way easier to configure and way smarter because now it's using Claude 3. That's the big change. So with that, I was going to walk you all through the console and show you some of those new features, but I don't think it's necessary. You all get it, and if you don't get it, hey, AWS is, you can make a free account, baby. Go sign up for AWS. Log into Bedrock. Go to US East 1 or US West 2 and open up the console and search Bedrock and click around. And worst case scenario, you incur a bill of like a few cents if you play around with the playground, but like you're not gonna accidentally like spin up something wild unless you're like really getting in there and building out like a knowledge base with OpenSearch or something. Experimenting with Bedrock's very inexpensive from a prompting perspective. I think in my personal account, I've done a lot of experiments, and I've spent on just inference, just on prompting of the model, I spent I think less than $5 in total so far. So it's like, and that's been with a lot of experimentation over months and months now. So Party Rock, yeah, that's a good point. Party Rock is also a good way to experiment, and it's free. So if you want to experiment with prompts, Party Rock is good. Where Party Rock falls flat when you want to launch something in production, but I do think it's actually a really nice sandbox to just quickly do prompt engineering on a particular model that you want to play around with. So this, by the way, everybody, is the point in this Providence user group talk. Providence, the home of Jazz Fest, the home of what was it that we called out earlier? Some type of fire thing?
Water fire, but Jazz
Water
Fest is in
fire.
Newport.
Water. Oh, it's in Newport. Thank you. I thought it
Yeah.
was in Providence. Oh man.
No, the Jazz Fest is in Newport, but the Water Fire is in Providence.
Water fire. I love. Is there a phrase in English of what that is? Like a contradiction? A water fire? It's just such a cool name. Anyway, this is the time, everybody, where I'd love to. I'm just gonna start spitballing here on some of the use cases that we're starting to see get launched into production with customers. I might pull up some case studies that I've run into at work recently on the screen and just start sharing it with you all. But this is also an opportunity, folks. If you want, totally optional. If you don't want to, it's cool. But if you want, you can come off camera, and if you want to talk about a use case, or if you are kind of curious or have any questions about the limitations of this technology, or what it's proving to be really good at right now, this is that open mic portion where you can come off camera and chit chat with us. Otherwise, I'll start sharing some use cases that we've seen launched recently.
I will say, to your point about Bedrock being fairly low cost, Hour of Code, I basically handed the keyboard to a bunch of kids, and they made all kinds of images with Stable Diffusion. I think it cost me about $3 for the day. So
there you go. And Stable Diffusion is generating images is even one of the more computationally heavy things to do, and that's cool. I'm surprised that's nice. It only costs a few bucks for. I bet the kids really like that.
Oh yeah, they loved it. They were trying to create pictures of their teacher, and it was
that's great.
It was funny because I had the kids come in, and I was like, okay, who's got their phones? Because I had another a recognition project that I was doing, and all the kids were like, oh no, I don't have my phone because we can't. And I was like, yeah, okay, wink, wink. Who's really got your phones? And they'll pull out their phones and start uploading pictures.
So I was in high school when iPhones hit the market, and I remember getting detention a lot. Like we were all it was just the constant like hiding it behind the book. It's fun times.
When I was in high school, it was still rotary phones.
Wow. Imagine how long does it even take was that take like 30 seconds to dial somebody? Simpler times. Simpler times. Isaiah said, nah, it only took like 5 seconds, dog.
Well, because the area codes were different too.
Well, yeah, then that's when you had to like actually have like a phone book, right? With numbers written down. Oh my Lord.
Hey, I know Dwight asked earlier in chat, and I'm actually very curious too. It's one of my biggest questions of the night. What are the top use cases for what you're seeing with like Bedrock and stuff? Like,
yep.
I know you kind of went over, but like kind of narrow it down a little bit. And
Yeah. I
you
mean,
don't have to
so
show us a demo, but even like a good solid example of like,
yeah,
because like I'm sitting here and I mean, I can think of so many great ideas for this. And, you know, like I found myself even talking about some of them to like random people that I meet, like, you know, my dentist,
yeah,
when they were asking about old files and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, wouldn't it be cool to know like how many people in the last 20 years that grew up in our area because of the water changing or whatever, you know, affected their their teeth. They're like, yeah, we've been trying to write a report on that for years. And I was like, oh, you could use AI to help you.
yeah,
Like, just, you know, because I'm excited like you are about it. It's just unbelievable what you can do. And I'm like, yeah, you could throw all your files in a PDF and just skim through it and get water records and skim through that and then ask, hey, does this correlate with any whatever? And
yeah,
I'm sure it will tell you.
yeah. No, definitely. I think the answer to like some of the top use cases. So I'll speak like I'll speak generally, but like I think the what is becoming more obvious to me is that like it the what I would call like the slam dunk use cases or like the home run use cases. There's some trends. There's some trends that stretch across all industries, but you also have to think industry specific. So I'll give you some. I'll give you both. I'll start with the examples that just trend across all industries and some of the drawbacks of a few of these too. So first is I've said RAG a few times today. That is a use case where it's usually a chat bot type of a use case where you initiate a chat and then you're integrating private data into that. Actually, a really good example I was going to mention, and I'm going to post. This is a great example. The New York Stock Exchange just put out a testimonial. They built this on Bedrock internally. They built a RAG use case where what it does is it ingests all of the legal documents and requirements for trading, and then they make that available to all the people that work at the New York Stock Exchange, because like trading laws are hyper complex and you literally need to be a lawyer to understand them. And so instead of having, it used to be, as I understand it, you know, I'm kind of I'm taking some creative liberties here because I don't work with the New York Stock Exchange. I'm just making some assumptions here, but like imagine that you're a software engineer at the New York Stock Exchange and that you need to build some new solution that automates trades or does some automated thing. And you're a software engineer and you need to make sure that that solution you build is compliant with the law. I've been in that spot where like, as an engineer, you're making decisions that kind of like are on the edge of regulation. It's kind of scary, and you have to get legal teams involved. There's a lot of back and forth and communication that happens, and so that's again, RAG is the technology that enables a use case like that. And so I would say I would bucket that in like general purpose chat use cases as like a foundational pillar that is being used. I also think this is the use case that in my view also has the most drawbacks. And here's why. We got how many folks on the call here? We got, I think 8 folks on the call right now. I don't know how many of you use chat interfaces in your daily interface, AI chat interfaces. Again, I use a developer assistant and I use a chat bot to help with technical things, right? But that was a learned behavior. I didn't just wake up one day and start doing it. It was actually a slow adoption process where like, and so I think the point I'm getting at is like, you can build, if you're a company and you're trying to drive productivity with a chatbot internally, you can build the best chatbot that's ever been built. And it really doesn't matter if you don't have a path to integrate it into people's workflow. And I'll be honest, if my AI assistant wasn't in my IDE that I have up all day, every day, I would use AI way less. Okay. And so that's in my view, the drawback of that solution, because I think as builders, as engineers, it's very easy to see the value of like a chat interface to help with certain domain specific knowledge or to help drive efficiency within a business that requires some deep level of knowledge. But I think that we as engineers and people that are rolling these solutions out also need to think more about where is the right place to put this that increases the probability that people use it and get value out of it, because there's a lot of there are instances of use cases where people will build out a really great RAG chatbot, and they didn't think of this basic fundamental of technology, which is like, how am I going to roll this out to my users? What will the user experience be, right? And I don't think there's any one size fits all answer for like where's the right place to put that user experience. But I do think if you're a developer, you got to put that experience in an IDE. If you are so you can kind of keep thinking about all of the different ways you might want to integrate that in somebody's workflow. But anyway, that's one pillar. General purpose chat, chat bots integrated with company data. I think another area that's coming up a lot is customer service. So imagine that you run a big call center. Again, this spans across industries. Almost everybody runs a call center these days. If you sell any type of consumer product, you sell any type of technical product. People don't realize how many companies have call centers actually. Like, people assume like, oh, call centers, that's for telemarketing firms. Actually, no, it's like virtually every enterprise, virtually every company in the S&P 500 is going to have a call center, right? Maybe not 100%, but like the overall majority. And so if you think of the function of a call center, what is a call center? A human is inputting data, extracting data, and answering questions. There's something else that's kind of good at those tasks that I'm aware of, right? AI is really good at answering questions, understanding questions, extracting data, summarizing data, like a call. You might want to summarize what happened on a call. Oh, sentiment, customer sentiment. Interesting. I might want to know if the customer's angry or if the customer seems happy, if they're using a curse word, right? So like, these are things that like an emotional human actually like is not like, I don't think it will be like the final form of customer service. I've had really terrible customer service experiences because of communication issues. And also it's like an efficiency thing, right? Like, I think even if you work in customer service, wouldn't it be nice like to have confidence that you're giving the right answer to all the questions that come up? So that's another area that there's like obvious use cases. I've mentioned it already. Developers. Like, if you work at a company and you don't have a standardized developer coding assistant in your environment, like you are just throwing away developer hours. You're flushing it down the drain. It's crazy. And there's still companies that are resistant to doing a like wide mandated rollout like that. Like all of those CTOs will look back and feel like fools. Like I really believe that. Like it's one of those things that's security teams are blocking it. It's just one of those things that's like the most obvious thing. Make your developers more productive. It's like you click a couple buttons and developer productivity surges. Now those are all great general purpose examples. I think domain specific examples. Here's an industry where I think this technology would be a slam dunk. Advertising and marketing, right? Or actually, let's expand that. Media. Let's just expand that to the umbrella of media as an industry. If I'm a graphic designer, I'm probably, if I'm a new graphic designer at college, like, how much do I want to focus on Photoshop versus focusing on like Firefly or like a generative AI tool that can help me develop things quicker? If I'm a company that spends a lot of money on visual artists, I mean, you heard it from Tom earlier. You can generate beautiful, intricate, high quality images for pennies. It costs a lot to get a human to do that. I think there will be some cultural shift there as well, because like I think art is something that we all value still, and I think that our relationship with art is going to continue to change. But I know a lot of people hate AI images. Like, I like them. I think they're beautiful and amazing, and they elicit an emotional response in me that is the same emotional response that is elicited in my body as a person whenever I look at a piece of art that a person makes. And so I don't think there's at least I'm kind of convinced there's not like a magical human quality to visual art anymore. I think that it's one of those things that like machines could deliver a equivalent, sometimes better experience than humans can there. So advertising, huge. The last one, because I know some people might have to go here and don't want to hear me ramble about AI off late into the night. The last one I want to call out is like back to basic type thing of document processing, right? And image processing. like, again, very general purpose use cases that AI is a slam dunk for. If you're doing document analysis, and when I say document analysis, I'm not talking about like summarize this file. I'm talking about like large scale document analysis. Imagine you're a company that delivers tax documents to your users. Imagine you're a company that delivers like regular invoices to your users. Imagine you're a company that wants to extract a lot of information from market data or data in the news or whatever. Like large scale document and text processing pipelines is an area that like takes the same thing that AI can do as a chatbot, but just automates it and builds it into a business process. We've been able to do this type of document processing for a long time, but the speed and the rate at which we can do it is much better now. Yeah, of course. Thank you for tagging along and hanging out and engaging throughout the time. And I guess with that, it is exactly 7:30. And so I will be right on time and give it back to my man, Tom, over here. And thank everybody for the time and the engagement and for the opportunity to meet with you all in chat.
Thank you very much, Trevor. That was really cool presentation, and I loved hearing about all this stuff. So please come back again on the Providence user group.
All right, I will, but not until I see Waterfire or Firewater or whatever it is.
Somebody's got to get a photo of that so we can, or maybe we can use generative AI to generate a photo of that. And for
I
Trevor.
wonder if it knows. I bet Gen AI has a weird response to Waterfire. That's going to be my guess. All right, everybody, have a good night. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you. And I will turn off the recording.